Lately, it seems like everybody's talking about things in history that happened around the same time. We've seen the posts and checked many out. Some are just plain wrong.
And some, well, they're true. Some of these facts just might make you question how we think of history and time itself. Are you ready for some surprises?
Let's dig into this. This one absolutely floored me the first time I heard it, and I can confirm it's true. The first McDonald's was opened on May 15th of 1940 in San Bernardino, California. You could get a hamburger and fries for the grand total of 25 cents. And just 5 days after the first McDonald's opened, the first prisoners arrived at the Auschwitz concentration camp. The first mass transport of 728 Polish prisoners arrived just a couple weeks later on June 14th. We'll just leave that mind blowing fact right there.
We all know that all the different species of dinosaurs didn't roam the earth at the same time, but it can be hard to understand just how far apart they really lived. Stegosaurus lived during the late Jurassic period from 155 to 144 million years ago. Tyrannosaurus rex lived in the Cretaceous period from 67 to 65 million years ago, which means Stegosaurus is almost twice as old as the T Rex. And T Rex lived closer to us than it ever lived to Stegosaurus.
It's amazing that George Washington never knew dinosaurs existed. The first president of the United States died on December 14th of 1799 at the age of 67 from a throat infection, 25 years before the first fossil bones of Megalosaurus were identified as dinosaurs.
Cleopatra lived closer in time to men on the moon than to the construction of the pyramids. You heard that right. The pyramids were built between 2250 and 2490 BC. Cleopatra was born in 69 or 70 BC. So the pyramids were nearly 2,500 years old when she was born. In 1969, Apollo 11 astronauts walked on the moon. That's only 2,038 years. So this fact is absolutely true.
John Quincy Adams, the sixth president of the United States, is the only president who met both the first and 16th presidents. He met George Washington in 1789 when he was just a law student. After his presidency, Adams would also go on to serve in the 30th Congress alongside Abraham Lincoln. Adams died just 3 months into the session on February 23rd, 1848. Lincoln was on the committee that arranged his funeral.
I don't know why this is so surprising, but Queen Elizabeth II and Marilyn Monroe were both born in 1926. Elizabeth would become queen and lead her country for more than 70 years. She died in 2022 at the age of 96. Marilyn would become one of the best known actresses and sex symbols in history, passing away at just 36 years old of an overdose.
Anne Frank and Martin Luther King Jr., both icons for freedom, were both born in 1929. The survival of Anne's diary after her time in hiding and her death at the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in 1945 at just 15 years old would teach the world about some of the atrocities of World War II. Martin Luther King would become one of the most prominent leaders in the civil rights movement. His I Have a Dream speech may be one of the best known speeches in history. His assassination in 1968, at the age of 39, shocked the world.
It's hard to believe, but the founder of an Eastern religion and the founder of Western philosophy, Buddha and Socrates, lived at almost the exact same time in the 5th century BC. Buddha's teachings on karma and overcoming suffering to find enlightenment would become the foundation of Buddhism and make him known worldwide. And Socrates, who was famously said the unexamined life was not worth living, was sentenced to death by poisoning for refusing to renounce his beliefs, would become one of the most famous philosophers of all time.
Orville Wright, who along with his brother made the first successful flight in 1903, died in 1948, which means he lived long enough to see airplanes drop atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in World War II. And although they never met, Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon, was 27 years old when Orville Wright died. Orville Wright would also live long enough to see Chuck Yeager break the sound barrier for the first time in an airplane.
It seems unbelievable, but Benjamin Franklin was still alive when Isaac Newton died. According to the American Institute of Physics, Franklin just missed meeting Isaac Newton on a trip to England. The great inventor, philosopher, and politician who was credited with discovering electricity lived from 1706 to 1790. Newton, the mathematician, philosopher, and scientist credited with discovering gravity with an apple, lived from 1643 until 1727.
Woolly mammoths still existed when the Pyramid of Khufu was built. Amazingly, woolly mammoths actually still inhabited Wrangel Island off the eastern coast of Russia until about 1650 BC. The oldest of the Giza pyramids, the Pyramid of Khufu, was built between 2600 and 2750 BC. That's more than 1,000 years before the woolly mammoths died out.
Here's one you probably don't know. Nintendo was started back in 1889. They originally produced handmade playing cards. 100 years later, they would be producing the Nintendo Game Boy, and everyone knew their name. When the company started back in 1889, Jack the Ripper was still terrorizing London's East End. He had murdered at least 5 women between August and November of 1888, and newspapers were still filled with the stories of the search of the serial killer when Nintendo was created.
Wow. Some of us remember the craziness of Star Wars being released in May of 1977. It was something else. Many of us stood in long lines to see the movie several times, and it instantly became a cultural phenomenon. What most of us don't realize is Star Wars was released in the same year the guillotine was last used in France. An immigrant from Tunisia was executed for torturing and killing his girlfriend less than 4 months after Star Wars was premiered. Charlie Chaplin also died that year, and a little company called Apple was born in 1977 too.
Here's one more that might shock you. The first Harry Potter book, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or here in the US, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, by J.K. Rowling was published in 1997. The first iPhone wouldn't be released until 2007, 10 years later. The cheapest iPhone at the time cost $499.
We hope you enjoyed this video. Were you as surprised by some of these facts as we were? Let us know in the comments. Hey, here's another DragonDen video you might like.
And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button.
And you can hit the notification bell if you'd like to know when our videos come out.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.